All right, guys, it is another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live. I want to welcome everybody and want to thank you guys for showing up each Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central. And I've got my buddy James Hucks, attorney up in Cleveland, Ohio, with me today. Good morning, James. Good to see you, bud.
How you doing, Bernard?
I am doing quite well. I hope that your world is got some sense of normalcy, whatever that new version is these days.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit back to normal with the courts and everything, but yeah, the cases are going up here, so I don't know what it's going to look like for how much longer.
Ohio. Well, it's you and I have been talking for the last couple of minutes about how we're practicing law in the new version of that, and it really is an interesting time, whether you're in your early 50s like myself and or much younger like you. It's you've got to adapt and figure out how you're going to move forward. And so many lawyers, regardless of the age, just get kind of set in their ways. And I think a lot of attorneys are really having a hard time figuring out how to push forward and how to make it a go. But I have no doubt that you're pretty seamlessly adapting to it. I know you said you've got some depots coming up online, and for your generation, I I don't want to categorize that it's you grew up with computers and you've always had them and you just immediately figure out what to do. Sometimes that's the case. But before we jump into some of the other topics, as well as this one, James, I should have said this from the very beginning. I know that you practice employment law in the Cleveland area and you do such a great job on social media. That's really how you and I found each other through Mitch's group and maybe some others, maybe Max Law. I'm not sure if you do much in there.
Mm.
But tell us a little bit more about your practice and your family and things, and then we'll jump into some of these other things.
Yeah, so my practice is basically 100% employment law. So I represent workers who are fighting their employers. I'm basically all virtual and virtually all paperless too. So I try to stay as paperless as possible. Sometimes, you've got attorneys and stuff that will still send you papers, but I scan that in the system. But with the employment law portion of things, the main goal that I have is trying to educate people on what their rights are. Because there's so many people that think something's illegal and it doesn't really end up being illegal. Let's say a boss just being a jerk to them. It's not necessarily illegal, but a lot of people would say that's harassment.
Yeah.
And there's other things that happen where it's something, they're not paying them overtime correctly, or they're
Mm-hmm.
paying them below minimum wage, and people don't want to speak about that. But it's just as illegal, more illegal than the other scenario where people want to call you about more. So just trying to educate people on what those things are, break down legal terms for people so they understand it. Because I think we have a tendency as lawyers to make things harder than what they should be. So we might have a call with somebody and say there's a motion for summary judgment coming up. The client doesn't really know what that even means or what that entails, and we'll just leave it at that. So I try to break it down for them. And my dog just joined the live. I try to break it down for them so they can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps them and helps build that rapport with me and my clients too.
Now I see who's your co-counsel over there.
This is my dog, Ziggy. So he came up to join. He likes
Excellent,
being on
excellent.
TV. He's been in a couple of the funnier videos I've done too.
I was going to say, I bet Ziggy can bring the voice of reason at times when things are a little haywire with you and your clients.
Exactly.
you
He's
know,
very calming.
we all need that in the office, that's for sure. But James, I tell you, we've done employment law for many years here. And you're right. You get so many phone calls from prospective clients or even current clients who say, my boss or my coworkers, they're really just such jerks. And I know they're violating the law. We got to get them. But I have to always, after we talk through it, tell them being a jerk does not necessarily mean that you're violating your civil rights or your
Mhm.
constitutional rights or your employment rights. And especially in Alabama, we're an at will employment state. So it doesn't, you have very few rights unless you qualify for certain things. Like when, quick example, you get hurt on the job and you have a work comp claim, and the company knows about it, you can't be retaliated against by being terminated for the sole reason of the termination is because you're maintaining that claim. Now, they can make up any reason that they want. Today could be, I don't know, green striped shirt day, and you and I walk in wearing a purple shirt and a black shirt, and they can get rid of you. I mean, that's far fetched, but you know what I'm talking about. But you're right. It's so hard to talk through a lot of these very personable issues for employees, and particularly when they just know in their mind they have set that there's something that we need to go to court. We need to expose the truth. And I know that a lot of times, I suspect for your experiences as well, most of the time, there's not a whole lot you can do except switch employment. Is that
Yeah.
some of your experience and what you're having to tell folks?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. That a lot of the times I do have to tell them, your best option may be to just switch employment.
Mm-hmm.
And even sometimes when I'm representing somebody, when I start representing them, they might start calling me about every decision that they make.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell them, listen, you make the best decision for you and your family. And I'll work with whatever happens, but you got to make the best decision for you and your family, first and foremost, because I can handle the lawsuit on the back end for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about that. Just do what you need to do.
That's so interesting because it really is the same thing that we tell our clients. They want to check in about every decision because they don't want to overstep or do the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I typically tell them, just shy of you walking into your boss's office and punching them in the face, you need, don't do that. But
Exactly.
I'll work with whatever facts you give me, but you need to make those decisions that are best for you and your family. And sometimes they feel paralyzed. I don't want to mess up what
Mm-hmm.
the attorney needs me to do. But speaking of an attorney, we got a few who have joined us today, James. I want to give them some shout outs and some folks
Okay.
who you and I both know. Mitch Jackson, of course, has joined us. Good morning, Mitch. And Dan Jaffe has joined us from, Dan, please remind me, are you in Ontario? I can't remember the city, but good morning to both you guys. Some of my friends, Hope Melman, Chuck Jackson, Terrence Kelly, have all joined us from different places in the country. So thank you. Guys, I'm talking with James Hucks, an employment attorney and a fast rising social media superstar. I want to transition for a minute into that. And we're going to talk about some stories that I'm hoping will put a smile on your face, James, as well as those who are watching us. And I want to talk about the moving things video that you came up with, and how did you secure the phone number of 555-555-5555. So you gotta give us some of that background. And while you're talking, I'm gonna try and pull up one of those videos to show folks.
Okay. So it actually started with, I was talking with a friend from law school. There was a group chat in Facebook. As most great ideas start from group chats in Facebook.
That's right.
And we were talking about something with someone had posted something on her wall about significant other losing stuff or blaming somebody for losing stuff. And I had commented something within the Facebook chat, and then I thought in my head, maybe I should just do a video response, it might be quicker. And I posted the initial video response to her wall. Somebody commented to that and said, is this like a PSA? And I thought in my head, well, no, it's not, but it sounds like it could be. So then I made the stop moving my stuff video from that.
All right, I'm gonna share it and we'll see if we can get it to play, okay?
Okay.
I thought this was so clever.
Hi. Have you recently been accused of misplacing things or not knowing where you put things by a significant other, a spouse, partner, or other individual? If so, you may be entitled to compensation. I'm looking for a class of people who have been adversely affected by people just moving or cleaning things that they have placed in specific places. The moving and cleaving of things is affecting the mental map created by most people when they place random things places that they might need in a year, 2 years, 5 years, a month, a week. There's no telling when you might need it, but you placed it there specifically for the occasion when you do need it. And these people who have moved your items from one place to the next without consulting you have jeopardized your ability to remember when those items were when you needed them most. If this sounds like you or someone that you know, please have them contact me. I can be reached at 555 555 5555. I want to represent you in your claim.
Oh, James, I just thought it was brilliant. And you know what it does is it humanizes you as an attorney. It shows you have a sense of humor. It shows that that's a very real world issue that all families deal with, probably on an everyday basis within their own home. Where's my stuff? Anyway, I thought it was brilliant. I want to see more of those. I think you've got a great sense of humor, and it really just shows that you're willing to address things that may not be as serious as other things, but at the same time, it gets, and to me, it gets people curious as to who you are. And now they're going to go find your website. Now they're going to go find out who you are, and they're going to remember you. So, what may have started out to be something very funny to begin with, I think ended up, because it was shared multiple times. It's had several hundred views, I believe, and you could almost make a series out of it. And anyway, I thought it was great. And there's one more story that I really want you to bring up, and this is involving your sister Vanessa. And we can tell the abbreviated version about the brown tree snakes story, if you don't mind. At age, I guess, 5.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember how old I was, but I guess old enough to be scared enough that a snake would come and bite. So she had told me, I think I was coming back from school, so I probably was older than 5, maybe. Can't really remember the details. It might have been like preschool. And she had told me that she watched a documentary about brown tree snakes and how these brown tree snakes were coming up through toilets and biting people in the butt. So I heard that and I was petrified. And my logic at the time was, they won't bite me on the butt if I go next to the toilet. So I started going like next to the toilet to avoid getting bitten by these brown tree snakes, even though there's not any in Ohio. I was still doing it because I didn't know that.
But this was your older sister telling you this, and you were about age 5?
Yeah, I think I was probably around 5, and my older sister told me that, so of course I believed her. She would have been around 7 probably.
Now, fast forward, what does Vanessa do for a living now?
She's a doctor now, so she's telling people what to do still, hopefully not about brown tree snakes.
Now, this had to have made an unbelievable impression on a 5-year-old if you're still telling that story decades later.
Oh yeah, I'm terrified of snakes now. So I think she did that to me because I remember holding a snake before when I was younger, and now I'm terrified of them.
Well, again, your willingness to share that on social media, again, to me, just kind of sets you apart. It's stories like that. It's real human interest stories that we can all relate to. As a kid, 99% of us were afraid of snakes, and I still am, even though living in the South and walking through the woods, I see them from time to time. But you putting a sense of humor spin on it, I applaud that. And the other thing I was going to share with folks, if you go to James's website, and I'll put the link to it in a minute, everybody's favorite attorney is a slogan on there. Tell us the origin of that, and then I've got a comment or two for you.
So that actually came from my dad. So he always would call me everybody's favorite because he thought I had an ability to just kind of mesh in with everybody and everyone seemed to like me regardless of me still being myself. So he always called me everybody's favorite. My mom calls me number one son because I'm the first son, not because I'm number one. I like to think because I'm number one, but because I'm the first son.
Sure, sure.
And so I wanted to have everybody's favorite be a part as my firm when I opened it up. And I knew I wanted it to be in the slogan somewhere. So I think it fits in nicely
Oh,
with the firm and makes sense.
I totally agree. I think it fits with your personality and the presentation you're giving from a social media standpoint. And we know that during this pandemic, more and more people are home, so they're on their phones or on their computers, and they have more time to search and they think more. And it's so vitally important that you have a presence out there. And it really is a slogan that sets you apart from a lot of people. So I do applaud that, and I hope you continue on those ways. And unfortunately, Mitch has now thrown a legal question out there for you and I to address, really more for you to address. I guess he wants us to get back on some point. I kid, of course, but he wants to know, because he knows you do employment law, what do you think about passing state or federal liability immunity laws for employees or employers concerning, COVID-19 employment related issues? Now, I will tell you before you give us your answer, from my perspective, I've seen tons of COVID-19 exposure and positive diagnosis in the workplace cases where people are calling us quite a bit, but it's incredibly difficult to pursue. How do you pinpoint it back to only the employment? And then the Business Council in Alabama is proposing all kind of immunities. But I want to hear your perspective, because I know that you're in a different part of the country. Your laws are a lot different from Alabama's when it comes to treating employment related situations. So what say you, James?
The same thing with immunity in Alabama is actually happening in Ohio too. So there's two pending bills in the Ohio State Senate and the House of Representatives in Ohio, the two competing bills for immunity. They both have different uh, versions of it. I'm probably going to do a blog on it sometime this week just to cover that portion of things. But in general, I think it's just a horrible idea because I think it creates a slippery slope where you might have some people who really need to use immunity and maybe they're acting in good faith, but you're going to always have those bad actors who are just going to use the immunity to do more bad things. And I think that's what's going to happen more with any immunity bill that's passed. And one of the good examples, I keep going back to the FLSA and wage stuff, but that's because those are the ones where you have laws that make it illegal, but people still do it anyway. So if you have something that's not going to make it illegal anymore, imagine what's going to happen.
Well, I want to say sometime in the last 2 weeks, Senator Mitch McConnell was proposing a 5-year blanket immunity or something like that. I didn't hear the entire speech, and it just, your initial response was just the same as in our firm. It's like, how can you do that? How can you expect people to expose themselves potentially in the workplace in exchange for knowing that if they are harmed, there's no recourse?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have said that the standard would be intentional, that they're intentionally doing something, where that's going to be almost impossible to prove because most of the time it's going to be somebody just being grossly negligent. So I don't know how that's going to play out. Hopefully, I know there's some bodies in Ohio that are legislating or actively campaigning against it.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully there's some good changes from there, or at least we can work with it. But I'm hoping that doesn't pass.
Well, what are you able to tell your clients or prospective callers who think they may have cases or just looking for advice? Hey, I work in a steel mill in mid-state Ohio. I've been working there for 15 years. I make a good living, but I know that my company I work for are not following much by way of protocol from a safety standpoint. I've told my supervisors I'm not, I guess for this scenario, I'm not in a union, I don't know how if it's a better scenario if they are or not,
Mhm.
but I'm not in a union. I don't have some protections. But if I quit this job, I can't feed my family. But I know every day I'm going to work there. How do you advise clients right now or people who are looking for those answers?
But first, you have to acknowledge with them that it is a tough situation because essentially any action you take could end up leading to your termination. Even if you take something that's not as aggressive as filing a lawsuit immediately,
Mm-hmm.
one thing they probably want to do is file a complaint with OSHA to help kind of build some protection with them.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, if they somehow find out that you filed the OSHA complaint, they could still terminate you. It'd be retaliation, but they can still do it. So always make sure people know that anything that we do, if they retaliate, it's probably illegal, but it's still something that they can do. So letting people know that before they take any action, I think that helps comfort them a little bit. OSHA is probably the best thing to do. If they can't do that, anything that you can report in writing to supervisor as opposed to just verbally doing it, because we don't want to get in he said, she said situations
Yeah.
where my client or potential client saying, yeah, I reported it to them. And then for some reason, the employer has amnesia about ever hearing about this.
Yeah.
So once we get it in writing, we have a record of that actually happening. So that's probably the main points of advice for that. And then for some of the cases too, since the immunity is just pending, we try to get the things filed with the EOC or whatever administrative body as quickly as possible now while everything's still pending. Because maybe there's a chance that we can get some type of result for you or change for you within that time period where immunity is pending before before everything's enacted. So those are
We
just a couple of the things I think help.
they do, but the sad reality of what we also tell our clients is you may be unemployed as the end result, and hopefully there's some recourse we can pursue. But the current reality is you're not going to have any income. You're going to have to go find another job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe or maybe not unemployment is available to you. I know that a lot of people have chosen the unemployment route because it's because of the increased emergency funds. They may make more money sitting home and being safer. Here's another question from Mitch. What's the biggest challenge right now in a comp case or in an employment case? I don't know if you guys do any comp, but um, I think that from a challenge standpoint, my experience, James, is first of all, they're completely stressed out because they don't have any of the answers. And I like to say um, that one of my jobs is to provide information to help at least lower a little bit of that stress. I may not be able to change the situation immediately, but just lending an ear, I think, and letting it soak in is a challenge, but it's definitely needed. What other challenges are you facing right now that are because of the pandemic that you normally, and maybe it's hard to differentiate?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for my clients and potential clients calling now is they want to weigh their options and see how the pandemic plays out. Because there's some cases where they're thinking, I think I have a case here, but I don't want to risk getting terminated while the pandemic's going on because what if my employer shuts down again and I don't have a job because I complained?
Yeah,
Or what if, it's a case that's already ensued? Somebody might say, I'll resolve the case for this lesser amount of money because I don't know what the business is going to look like. In 3 to 4 months, they might file for bankruptcy.
yeah,
So those are some of the I think those are the biggest questions I've had for people with regards to the pandemic. There's been some other unemployment questions too with what's going on with the CARES Act.
mm-hmm.
And I think unemployment is going to run up here within the next couple of weeks. the extended CARES Act unemployment,
Yeah,
and
right. I
there
think
hasn't really.
maybe the 25th of July, I think is when
Yeah,
it terminates. But it's sadly it's forcing people who are in a very difficult decision-making situation to have to compromise somewhat, or maybe a lot, on what they normally would make decision-wise. I don't want to. Oh, we got another co-counsel. I see. Now we have a third member. Who's that?
this is the other dog, Remy. She's not on camera as much.
Well, we want to thank them. They're now flanking you. It looks very impressive from the Huck's Law
Exactly.
Firm. But
Yeah.
it really is forcing people to the mindset. I need this job. I've got to stay here. I don't want to upset what's going on. And if I make certain decisions, I don't know if I have a job the next day. And that is very challenging from our perspective, and I'm sure from yours. You have to make the best decision from a bad situation.
Yeah.
And no one has the crystal ball to know when the pandemic's going to end or when things are going to improve, because frankly, all the numbers that we're hearing and seeing, it doesn't sound like things are headed in the right direction right now. But guys, I want to let you know I'm talking with James Hucks out of Cleveland, Ohio. We're talking employment law. We're talking his co-counsel who are flanking him right now. And James, I want to pivot for a minute or two about something that's important to you and I. It's certainly not uh, as important as real world things, but that's the future of sports right now. You've got your Steelers, which I wholeheartedly endorse. You've also got your Buckeyes, which thankfully Ziggy is kind of partially covering for a minute. And I know that's your college team, which is a bad word in SEC country. But realistically, all of these kids who are in college with the fall sports and the pro athletes, we got the NBA guys who are in the bubble, whatever that may be, in Orlando, and summer/spring training is going on in baseball. But the reality is, I kind of feel like they're going through it, but I don't know how they're going to finish it. I don't know if you share a similar sentiment about it. We all need sports as an outlet, but what are your thoughts on this right now?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that they're just kind of going through the motions of making these plans. But I think most people see now that there's probably not any real way that they can actually implement them with all the cases that are popping up. And even with, you might see things like tennis and those individual sports where they're not really having contact with each other, but even things like soccer and basketball, you're still kind of up in somebody's face. If somebody leaves and happens to get coronavirus from the bubble, or some worker that's within the bubble gets coronavirus, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
I think there's just too much risk to be able to do it. And then even just talking about college sports, they're not paid to take that risk on.
No.
So if they're not getting paid anything, I don't understand why they have that risk, aside from just the college wanting to make more money and generate money to.
Well, I was going to say there's so much money at stake. I'm seeing more and more colleges are going to online classes. Some colleges and universities are doing a hybrid version where it's one day of the week might be in person, one day of the week may be online. But how do you have these games on a campus like the SEC, ACC, maybe the Big Ten? I'm not sure. There's three of the major Power Five have not declared what their new schedule is going to look like. Out west, they've determined it's strictly in conference. They've canceled all of the non-conference games, including the Alabama USC game, which would have kicked off the season, among other games. But the reality is even if you're getting paid the millions of dollars and like the pros, there's still the same exposure as the kids who are in college who are not making any money off of this. And it just seems like there's so much at stake. I don't know realistically how this occurs without major problems occurring. I mean, what about the first kid? I keep calling them kids, but the young adults who are playing college sports ends up on a ventilator in an emergency room. I mean, in an ICU, you know? Anyway, I know you and I don't have all the answers. I know what we want. We do. We definitely are in agreement. We want sports to go forward. I think it is important for life and stress relief and something else to do besides, our work. But James, I sure have appreciated your time today and sharing some of your insight about employment law and social media.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and let me know if you want me on again.
Oh, absolutely. And guys, as I try to do each Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central, interesting people in their areas of expertise, and James Huck certainly fits that bill. And hopefully his co-counsel will keep things under control there. And it's so good to talk with you, my friend. I hope you have a good week.
Hey, good to talk with you too, Bernard. And I did want to say there are more videos coming for that class action attorney comedy video. There's one about the Stop Spoiling My Films that's up already. So check that out, and I'll come
Now,
up with more different ones for you.
tell me where to find those, because I want to put a link. Is it on your Facebook page, or do you have a YouTube channel? Where do we find that, James?
They're on Facebook and on YouTube. The Facebook page should be Huck's Law Firm LLC, and I'll send you a link for it. And
then
YouTube should just be my name, James Huck.
On YouTube?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to find the YouTube channel, and I'm going to post the link to that. How can folks get in touch with you otherwise, James? I don't want to get out of here without people being able to reach you if they have a case or concern about employment related matters in Ohio.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is to call. The number is 937-315-1106, or just shoot me an email. It's jhux@huxlawfirm.com. That's JHUX as an X-ray at huxlawfirm.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Thank you. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central. Nomberg Law Live. You guys have a good week. Take care.